Hey guys, welcome back to the Flying Dollar Motorsports channel. I'm Jordan and I'm finally bringing you back some content with CC here, my little 63 Corvette. It's been a while since I've had anything with this because it's been a rough and kind of expensive summer at the Flying Dollar Motorsports garage. Besides having some problems with the Xterra, having the video that I did on the Xterra a while back on how to replace your water pump pulley bracket, your fan clutch pulley bracket. Apparently the part that I got, even though we installed it right, was faulty because that blew out on me. So there's some money there. I had to replace the transmission cooler because I had a persistent leak. I think it was just a little micro crack that was just leaking all over the place when it expanded and heated up. So I had that going on, and along with that, after the Street Rod Nationals that I went to, and I also did a video on that, I was coming home from the local Corvette Club picnic and I suffered a broken valve spring. I don't know how. I don't know what I necessarily did. I had dumped the clutch when I left and do a little burnout, but nothing crazy, just a little chirp. And that's not actually when it broke. It broke maybe 5 miles down the road pulling up to a stoplight. I just pulled up and kind of lost a lot of power. And because I have experienced a broken valve spring on almost brand new Ford Raptor when I owned one back in 2012, I was pretty suspicious that that's what it was. And I got home, limped at home. Probably shouldn't have, but I limped at home and popped off the valve cover, and sure enough, there it was. There was a broken valve spring under there and a bent push rod. So that being said, I went ahead and replaced the valve springs myself. I had a friend who knows a lot more than me. We dragged it over to his house on a trailer, replaced it with some new push rods and some new Lunati aftermarket valve springs, thinking that that's all it was going to do. Got it on there, and this car started up, and it seemed to run great, but it was blowing a lot of smoke out of the side pipes. And so I asked around because, again, I haven't had an old car like this, especially this type of non-fuel injected carbureted deal, since I was like 18. Because being in the military, it gets really hard to move extra cars around and expensive. So I just haven't had anything like this. So I'm kind of learning all these engine things as I go here. But it was blowing a lot of smoke. Lo and behold, took it in to a professional shop because I was out of time to work on the car, and they said I needed a valve job. Now this thing had, Corvette Fuelie double hump heads on it, which are, kind of the top of the line for a stock iron head that you can get. And based on what they quoted me for a full valve job and everything, it was like over $900. And I know that I could have gotten a set of aluminum heads for like $1,200. And at that point, I told the guy, I was like, well, exactly that. For a couple $100 more, I could have a set of aluminum heads, probably flow a little bit better, and save some weight. So what I've got now is a set of Edelbrock E-Street aluminum heads on this thing. So these are the Edelbrock E-Street heads are a 64cc head now that I've got on here, with deck height of 9.025 inches, intake valve diameter of 2.02 inches, and exhaust valve diameter of 1.60 inches. They're rated to 5,500 RPMs. Now this is set up like it was originally a 340 horse car, which means the red line on the tachometer is like 6,200. But driving it around, I drive spirited, but I don't ever hit anything above 5,500. And it's for a hydraulic flat tappet cam, which this has been upgraded before I owned it to a Lunati hydraulic flat tappet cam. It does now have roller tip rockers in it, which it had in the original Fuelie heads, and I left the original Edelbrock valve springs that came in the heads on there. I haven't put the Lunatis that I had bought for the other ones back in here yet, but because I didn't know whether that was recommended for these or not. So it's got what's in there now. Now the problem is once I got it back, I'm thinking that these are going to give me a little more performance. However, the car's not running great. It runs just fine, but it's not as snappy as it used to be. And when I get to like 4,500 RPM, there's almost always, it's fairly consistent, it seems to bog down. Now, that could be two issues. when I was having these Edelbrock heads installed, the mechanics there also said, hey, your distributor plate's a little worn out. Now this had an original style OEM point style distributor on it that my dad, when he owned it, did update to a Pentronics style distributor. But I went ahead and replaced the distributor with a Dragonfire electronic distributor as well. So what I'm thinking here with that bog down is that, one, it could be a timing issue, could be a timing curve issue, because I'm here at 6,000 feet in Colorado, and I know that the mechanics, they were a hot rod shop. So, you know, I'm trusting that they knew how to set that advance a little bit more for the elevation. I'm trusting they knew how to do that because they do it on cars all the time. With that bog down at that, I'm thinking that it's a carburation issue. And the reason I think that is because this car still has the original Carter AFB carburetor on it. Now, this thing is like probably 60-something years old. I don't know if it's the original one to the engine, because I don't even know if this is the original engine to the car. I actually think it's out of a 62 based on some research, but I'm not 100% sure. But it is an original style Carter based on where the ports are and the mechanical vacuum and everything. It's probably from the era of the early 60s. And what I've researched is that they really didn't tell us, they really didn't identify what CFM these were. So they're generally expected to be the 450 to 500 CFM range. That's only a little 327, which probably would be perfectly fine. However, you know, I've got upgraded heads now. I've got a cam in it. It's, when they took it apart, they said the pistons looked to be a little bit higher compression piston, so maybe it had some work done to it before we owned it. I know my dad never did any lower end work other than the cam. So where we're at now is I think that it's a little starved for fuel, especially at the 6,000 foot mark. So to correct that, I've gone and hopefully found a solution and bought a new carburetor for it. So again, I believe that I'm going to find a solution with this, with a new carburetor. In addition to that, when I was having it fixed and everything, the mechanic said it did sound like it had a flat spot in the accelerator pump, so it might have needed it anyway. And as old as that original carburetor is, it might not be worth it to clean it. So what I've gone with is this Edelbrock AVS2 carburetor. This is a 600 CFM carburetor with an electronic choke. The original has a mechanical choke, which I'm not even sure it's working very well anyway. The spring may be worn out. I don't know if it's ever been replaced. This car was, when my dad owned it, was in Florida, not Colorado, where it's like 13 degrees like it is outside now. Because, you know, down in Colorado or down in Florida, if it drops below like 75, you know, they declare a state of emergency and start putting blankets on their plants and whatnot. So I don't even know if that thing works very well. So this does have an electronic choke. What I do want to say right now is if you've gotten this far in the video, thank you very much. But I want to, full disclosure, I am not a mechanic. In fact, I haven't had a carbureted car in over 20 years. And I don't know what I'm doing. So I am pretty much going to be guessing trying to do this. But I think I've watched enough Hot Rod Garage videos and YouTube videos to build up the testicular fortitude to attempt this. I don't know how many trips to the parts store I'm going to have to make. If you're taking bets, I'd probably say at least 3. But I'm really not using this as a how-to. It's just kind of an update on the car and what I think is going to go on. Now, I've done a lot of research on this, but I've never pulled that original carburetor off. So the first problem that I'm kind of worried about is that Carter AFB, from everything that I research, I believe it's a square bore, and which this is too. So I hope that that's true. And why is that a problem? Because if it was like a quadrajet style intake on this thing, which I believe it's an original Corvette aluminum intake, maybe not the original, but at least an original, hopefully it is a square bore. The reason that would be a problem if it's not is because this car, the clearance from the top of the air cleaner to the hood is it's less than an inch, so I don't have room to put an adapter on there to make that work. So this would be a paperweight at that point. But I don't think that's going to be the case based on my research, so I think that's going to fit. That's problem number one. And so problem number two is that I had the original 63 Corvette air cleaner on here. Now this is like a 1 year piece. You know, it has the inlet there in the back, and it's a very nice chrome piece. The problem is that this air horn portion here is only like 4.5 inches, whereas all the new carburetors are like 5 1/8 across. So this doesn't fit. And because this is a 1 year only piece and it is very expensive, I don't want to cut this open. I don't want to destroy it. If it was, you know, just a junk old car where you can get the lid from anything, I wouldn't care. But because this is the original piece, I don't want to destroy it. So I've gone with the standard Edelbrock 14-inch intake, and hopefully that works. I'm a little worried about clearance. May have to take a few stabs at that to see if I can get it to work. If anything, because I don't really like the chrome piece on top that says Edelbrock, hoping that what I can do is set an air filter inside it and maybe use this on top so it still kind of looks like the original thing. We will see how that turns out. All right, so continue on with things that I foresee as possibly being a problem is, of course, the connections on this 60-year-old carburetor aren't the same as that new AVS2 carburetor. First off, I didn't know what this was coming out of the back of here. Now, all the videos I watch on the new Edelbrock says this rear port back here is for power brakes. This car doesn't have power brakes. It's manual, drum, all the way around. Come to find out, because this runs kind of back down here into a hard line underneath behind the distributor, and I'll see if I can show it to you back here. There is it runs down back in here into the top of the block back there, but that is a PCV valve. I've never seen one like that. The only time I've ever seen it is when they go into the valve cover, but enough calls and enough internet research, and I believe that's PCV. And the problem is now I'm going to have to run this to the front of the new carburetor because the PCV valve is right there. Which means I'm going to have to make something. So that's one trip to the parts store. Or I already know I've ordered a new one so where I can try to make an inline one from here to here. The other problem I have is that on the new carburetor, the fuel pump is back here. This is the front. The fuel line is back here. Now, on the old carburetor, the fuel line's right up front, and this is the factory style mounting position for the fuel filter. And I've got a hard line obviously going down here. I'm going to have to figure out how to get this from there to there. Now, like I said, I don't know what I'm doing. So I am going to have to, obviously this has been made with some fittings and whatnot. I'm going to have to figure out how to get this into there. If I have to remove this and use an aftermarket style, I will, but I kind of want to keep at least this look. Now, why is that another problem? Well, again, this comes back here. Now, I have bought this fuel line kit, an 8126. Oh, by the way, the part number on this AVS2 is a 1906. It's a carburetor, AVS2 annular boosters, I'm sorry, 650 CFM. I think I said 600 earlier, with an electric choke. But anyway, I got this line, and what this does is connects from here to the back and should give you a nice hard line underneath to route along underneath your choke and whatnot. So hopefully that will work out for me and it won't require a ton of modification. Now, I did say this was annular. What the difference is that if you look at the jets in here, you can see that they're two, well, they're not the jets, but they're the boosters. There's two round ports there rather than having a single dump booster where it just sprays fuel into it. It has these, what this has is a ring around that circle there, and it has 12 little individual holes inside that ring, which sprays the fuel. And the thought is that, or the technology, I guess, is that it makes smaller fuel globules which atomize faster. When you have the bigger the drop of fuel that goes in there, the slower it atomizes, so the faster fuel atomization from the smaller and more finer mist causes a little bit better and more efficient fuel atomization. Alright, so I've got this all cleaned off, and I was a little creeped out at first because when I pulled this off, this is what I saw, and I've never seen an intake manifold. Granted, remember, I've never changed carburetor, but all the stuff I've seen on the pictures on the internet, it either had, you know, a giant hole, two giant holes in the back and two smaller ones, or it had square bores. You know, we have two of these ovals. But under some more research, searching the part number and the original like Carter AFB, I'm pretty confident that this is a square bore style rather than a spread bore, which was one of my concerns. Was it a square bore, and would the new carburetor fit it, which the AVS2 is a square bore. Apparently this aluminum intake manifold is specific to an early C2 generation Corvette 62, and the problem is that is obviously a very odd looking intake port, and finding that gasket has proved pretty much impossible in the local area, even Colorado Springs, as big as it is. The only place you can order it is, you guessed it, Corvette only places. So I made one. This is basically a Holley, I think it's a 4150 or something, but it has the same diameter on these two, on these circular ones, and then it had 4 holes that were all equidistant or equal size radius and stuff. But I cut out that center section, shaved it down, so now it goes in here. We got a little bit of thinner area that I don't like here, but this should be enough. Everything else lines up pretty well. Hopefully, it's a little bit of a size difference here, but hopefully it'll be okay. So I can already see that this chrome hardline is going to cause me to recreate a new solution here for this fuel filter. Obviously it's pretty long. It runs it out under here nice and clean. It looks good from there, but this isn't going to work. So this is where my hardline goes down. I'm going to have to reroute something. So there's going to be a little bit more engineering here. On another note, this is my PCV line, and the old one was obviously a threaded type that went in, and I haven't seen one like that, so I found this one, which is obviously a hose here that will fit this size hose to go over this metal tube, and then I'll use another smaller piece of vacuum hose to go into that front 3/8 inch port there on the front. So we will be rigging that up. I'm just going to kind of measure it because this is the original hose and it's pretty old and brittle. I'm just going to try to run it today while I have, since I can't do anything about this right now because all the stores are closed. I'm going to run this and just figure out the sizing of it, and then probably go and get a new piece of hose so I don't have to worry about that. Okay, so I'm working in the night here. A little poor lighting, I'm sorry, but it looks like I've got everything finally plumbed. I got a PCV valve here that I found one. Just randomly going through boxes at Advance or AutoZone or something. The guy let me in the back and find which one kind of fit. We went through like 30 of them. They didn't fit, and he finally just found one on the computer that kind of matched the description, and that works out. I also, if you notice, I had to get rid of the hard chrome metal fuel line. It just was too long. It came all the way out to like here, and I couldn't find a way to make the stock
fuel filter fit onto it, and I was digging through 3 or 4 different part stores to try to find one that would fit onto this fitting over here that was threaded. So this is a female end, this is the male end, and that would fit in between, but it just left no room. This was only like a 4-inch gap to maybe 5-inch, and it was just too small. So I had to bite the bullet and go with this Edelbrock banjo fitting. It's part number 8089, and a set of hose down here. Instead of a zip tie here, it was just to kind of hold it out of the way. That's not going to be there. I got the vacuum hose running over here ready. And the last thing that I had to do is I did the electronic choke, the ground to the housing like they recommend, and I have this power wire. This is the power wire they give you. The other end is usually, it's unfinished when you get it, but what I did was they tell you to bring a find a key on hot wire that is not the coil or the alternator. So I did that. I found one over here, I believe, back over here. Okay, so hope I'm doing this right. I bought a test light. What I know about electronics is even less than I know about carburetors. So I've got it grounded, and if I'm doing this right, touching it to something like the hot wire on the coil tells you you've got a circuit there. So I found one over here. I'm not sure what this is. This green wire also does, but I can't. It's obviously an unused accessory because it's not hooked to anything right there, but I can't find a connection that fits in there, and I don't want to cut it off because I'm not sure what it's for. But I did find this switch wire here. Not 100% sure what it goes to either. I haven't figured it out yet, but it does have a circuit to it. So, and it already has a hot wire going to it there. And it is a key on only, because there's with the key on, and there's the wire that I completed. And then if I turn the key off, key is off, nothing. So I'm hoping that is correct. And then we'll get this thing, try to get this thing started, and then hopefully it works. I don't have any fuel leaks or anything. And then I'll button up the distributor shielding there, and on to the last problem, which is a air filter that fits underneath this hood. We shall see.
Ready?
Yep. Seems to be okay. I don't see anything leaking underneath. So now I just got to figure out how to tune it. So there you go. More YouTube videos and I'll figure out how to tune a carburetor. So guys, there it is. It's finally installed. Car's running. If you're keeping tabs from earlier in the video when I said how many trips to the parts store do you think I'm going to make between figuring out the PVC line and figuring out how the fuel hose was going to work, and with the fuel filter, and the final hurdle that I'm kind of trying to still get over, which is the air cleaner, which I'll talk about here in a second. Total trips, 7. Took me a little while. What I'm working with right now is the factory air cleaner, and the factory carburetor has like a 4 and I don't know, 5/8 or something, 7/8, something like some crazy size carb flange. It's much smaller than these, and it does so the original air cleaner doesn't fit anymore. And mathematically, this boggles my mind, but there is always a clearance issue with Corvettes. Even though from the base of this carburetor to the carb flange, it's only about 3.5 inches, I think, and the factory one is about 1/4 inch taller. And the factory air cleaner from bottom to top is about 1/4 inch taller than the current air cleaner that I have right now. I've gone through, I'm on my fourth air cleaner that I've tried now. So what I've got here, this is your standard, 14 inch chrome Edelbrock air cleaner. I got this actually for free when I purchased the carburetor, it was a deal at O'Reilly's. And I don't really like this carburetor, so I went out and or air cleaner, went out and got one of those Edelbrock triangular ones with the mesh over top. I'll throw a picture up here. That one was too tall and too wide, so I went out and tried to get it was a little 9-inch one diameter with a 2-inch element, also too tall. It didn't hit in the same spot as this one does. And then I even tried this nice ovular one. It was an oval. It was about 12 inches long from front to back and 8 inches wide. Same exact contact spot. So I'm back to this original one. And when you get this, it comes with a 3-inch element. I've moved down to a 2-inch element, and it looks okay from the top because I haven't modified that. But what I've had to do is, don't look at my, this is temporary. I'm going to get the piece that Edelbrock sells separately, of course, to make this work. But this lip here that you can see right here, it was maybe a 1/2 inch to just under, maybe 3/8 of an inch taller. I had to grind this down a little bit, and it's hard to see on the air cleaner itself, but I'm actually a little lower on one side than I am on the other, so it's kind of tapered down. I got it to the point where it's actually contacts the choke, and you know, this is kind of ghetto, but I had to bang this out just a little bit to get another 1/8 of an inch of clearance. And so it sits on there. What I think I'm going to do is continue to search for a deeper flange or an alternative option for this, because I don't really like this air cleaner. However, with the 2-inch element and a little bit of modifications, I have gotten it to where if I cinch it down pretty good, it does clear the hood enough for me to close it. I haven't driven it like this yet. Like I said, this is a temporary solution. I think I am going to go ahead and see if I can just dent this a little bit more to clear the choke, and then maybe shave another 1/8 of an inch or a 1/16 of an inch just to make me a little more comfortable. I don't have any clearance issues with the air cleaner wing nut there, but where it tends to hit on these Corvettes is right here, and that is where I had it. It's like right in here. You can see the spear comes down here. Here's the bracing for the hood itself, but right in here where the spear ends, there's a little spot that tends to hit, and I've actually got a little kind of a nick in the paint there that you can see. So it's installed, car's running. I still got some tuning to do, but that's all for another video. I'm going to go ahead and put the shielding back on after I do a little more trimming of this and see what I can see if I can fix that up, and I'm going to continue to hunt for a better solution for this. Thanks for watching if you're still here, and go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button for me. Share it with your friends, and we hope to see you next time. Smooches.